criminal, wild, savage. These are all terms that have been used to describe an outlaw's way of life. Furthermore, these terms are evident by the way in which the outlaws act, leading to them obtaining criminal records which prevent them from staying in the same area for too long. As such, their distaste for civilization and attachment to open and extensive land have led to their downfall over the years. More recently, though, people have tried to betray their very distinct and unique culture. A recent game by Rockstar Games, titled Red Dead Redemption 2, explores the decline of outlaws and conveys their way of life. The players follow Arthur Morgan, a member of the Dutch Van der Linde gang, as he embarks on a journey of escape. The law is looking for Dutch, and the gang is on the run, attempting to escape the country through this journey. Arthur must question the outlaw code of loyalty as he figures out what loyalty truly means and where his lies. Although loyalty is a prominent aspect of their lifestyle, religion tends to be the basis of culture. Often, it is the basis of why and how people do things, and thus, without a religion, a distinct form of character is expressed. That character being free and liberated, free to express what they want to express without being confined within religion. To continue, in religion, for example, Christianity, similarities can be drawn from the various followers of the religion. Since they all have a similar moral compass, a lack of religion leads to freedom within your own moral compass. Arthur Morgan is an example. He kills, steals, and ruins relationships for the sole purpose of gain, for himself and his gang. That is until he gets tuberculosis in the middle and starts to fear what he has done in his life. Towards the end of the game, you can see that Arthur starts to care less of his way of life, and thus he begins to help people, while Dutch maintains his obsessive mindset of gaining money. Furthermore, there is a point in which Native Americans plead for help, as they are about to get kicked off their land. Again, Dutch refuses to help, and orders his gang not to get involved, as to stick to their main goal. But that didn't stop Arthur from defeating their oppressors. Although lack of faith has been carried for his entire life, a deep hidden belief in a God was brewing, and once death finally greets its victim, this belief acts as a salvation. This can be seen various times throughout history, most notably when King Charles II was accepted into the Christian Church on his deathbed. Although lack of faith has been carried his entire life, a deep hidden belief in God was always brewing, and once death finally greets its victim, this belief acts as salvation. This can be seen various times throughout history, most notably when King Charles II, who was accepted into the Christian Church on his deathbed, was faced with immense regret and true fear of what was to come next. Furthermore, these stories live on in many religious texts, including the Holy Bible, for instance. It states that he made a metal image of a bull calf, and the people declared, "These are your gods, Israel, who brought you up from out of the land of Egypt." Later it says, "Now, leave me alone. Let my fury burn and devour them. Then I'll make a great nation out of you." Exodus 32. This demonstrates how, as it is in the Bible, it is also in the game. When the people were acting against God by praying to a false idol and angering God, this happens in the game when he thinks that he may be being punished by God for his actions in the past. Due to their lack of religion, their culture has an innocent aspect, lack of consequence. However, although their way of life is carefree at times, they follow a strict moral code to be extremely loyal. various times throughout the game you kill and steal for sport, turning a blind eye to consequence. But with this killing and pillaging also comes loyalty. You commit all these acts for the sole purpose of benefiting your gang and making a name for yourself, ultimately leading to you being able to flee the country to pursue a safe life with your gang. Arthur Morgan trusts Dutch to the point of giving his own life for him. According to a book called The Cowboy Legend, our author John Jennings states, there was a strong cowboy ethic that most adhered to. It called for being loyal, almost to a fault, and basically honest. Jennings 3:6. This is seen various times throughout the game in the form of Arthur following Dutch's orders to the dot, whether blowing up a bridge for Dutch or fleeing to South America. However, this loyalty begins to fade once Dutch gets truly consumed by greed and has a strong desire for money. Dutch is incapable of realizing that the world has changed and that he is unable to go back to his roots. The world is becoming more lawful and civilized and is driving out the outlaws. With Arthur's skepticism also comes reassurance in the form of the various speeches Dutch gives out to stimulate motivation. One of these speeches takes place when Arthur is questioning Dutch's plan to flee to South America, to which Dutch replies, "The promise of this great nation, men created equal, liberty and justice for all, that might be nonsense too, but it's worth trying for. It's worth believing in. Can't you see that, friend?" To continue, this is one of many times in which Dutch attempts to manipulate his group. Outlaws were sectionalists, thus they were very proud of their way of life and where they came from. So bringing up inspirational and deep words found within one of the most influential documents in history was sure to spur motivation. Moreover, continuously throughout the game Dutch talks of the American dream and how it has been tainted by civilization. As such, when he talks of the American dream, about how it has been tainted, when he talks about how they're going to clean the filth that has been plaguing their great nation, the gang finds hope. Hope that they are going to return to their old way of life. But the Industrial Revolution is sweeping America, and the technology advancements it brings brings to the table, such as transportation. Consequently, Dutch is using fallacious reasoning to inspire others to fulfill their duty, ultimately leading to personal gain. The impact of these inspirational words leads to a dramatic motivational boost, sparking ambition and initiative. To illustrate, this is evident by Arthur's reaction. Prior to the speech, he informed Dutch of his distaste for the various crimes they have committed, robbing a train and a bank, stating that he didn't wish to pursue his current life. Subsequently, after Dutch's speech, Arthur's mindset was completely shifted, reinvigorated with immense loyalty towards Dutch. Dutch has an immense fear of the changing world, unable to cope with the new culture. But with a changing world also come social changes in the form of feminism. Feminism is a reform movement with the goal of spread equity for females. Beginning in 1948 in Seneca Falls, New York, women fought for their rights, trying to prove that they are on par and just as capable as men who were able to vote. To continue, the suffragists desired to pass reform legislations, yet various politicians denied passing a law to a group made entirely out of females, thinking it to be foolish and irrelevant to creating a better future for the country. Additionally, prominent suffragists such as Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton Stanton's leadership led to many revolts against the government. With petitions and peaceful protests, their goal was to pass an amendment that would give women the right to vote prior to obtaining a reform in legislation, because once the right to vote was obtained, they could have a say in government. As such, on August 18, 1920, women legally had the right to vote through the 19th Amendment of the United States. This reform movement continues to this day. Although women have obtained the right to vote, this reform movement continues to this day. Although at times they are viewed as inferior to men, sometimes evident through discriminatory decisions such as gender wage gap, in which men obtain more money for doing the same job. Throughout the game, you actually run across various peaceful protests with women fighting for women's suffrage. Additionally, there's even a point where you play a prominent role within the protest, providing transportation for the women and taking them across town so they can spread the word. At the beginning of Red Dead Redemption 2, you see how civilization is on the rise and gunslingers are on the way out. This could be due to the Industrial Revolution that spread across the American frontier. As you can see throughout the game, like in the city of Saint Denis, there is a very diverse population of people from many different backgrounds, from African American to a large population of French residents. Also, we see a social hierarchy where you go to the slums of the city, where if you go to the slums of the city, you can see that there where the majority of the African American population lives. But as you move closer to the factories and warehouses, you see more wealthy French businessmen. Then, if you go to the marketplace and you see the middle class Chinese people making their living by selling goods, as well as the Italian mafia is present throughout and around the city. You can see people from all over the world are coming together to form the Saint Denis community. The French culture contributes a lot to the city of Saint Denis. This is shown when you find out that the mayor is French and that the people from other nationalities can hold positions of political power in the United States. As well, the architecture of the city is influenced a lot by Chinese, with a lot of restaurants looking as if they came from a Chinese background. This shows that even though they were ridiculed for their ethnicity, they still showed that they were proud of where they came from, and this is still shown today in Chinatowns in most big cities, even throughout the U.S., even though they're accepted, unlike when they first came. This is why the U.S. is called the Great American Melting Pot. An example of this can be seen when the Native Americans were to dress and act westernized because the government saw them as primitive, savage, and unclean because of their culture. The government hoped by trying to have them assimilate to the Western culture, that would make the U.S. more respectable and more put together. The game's main focus is on the story of how Arthur Morgan develops and shows his character throughout it. At the beginning of the game, he mostly focuses on being loyal to Dutch and doesn't really care about life because he feels that as though he can bounce back from anything. Then, as he travels through the game on an inner moral journey, he begins to question if he is actually loyal to Dutch when he realizes that he has tuberculosis and suddenly life is a lot more meaningful to him, and that it could be short, and that the people around him and himself won't be around forever. He finds John Marston and does not like him at first, but then he begins to realize why he left. Because in life, it's not all about the money. John found love and had to move away from the gang to protect himself and his future. Outlaws prospered in the untamed land of America prior to the Industrial Revolution, a revolution where technology advancements were made in order to increase efficiency. Although savage at times, they had a moral obligation which they could not break, to be immensely loyal. Furthermore, Their various aspects of life have been adopted into modern-day society in the form of modern outlaws. For instance, modern outlaws, petty criminals, sometimes within an organization of criminals, tend to be immensely loyal to their superiors in their line of work. The reason outlaws aren't as prosperous today in civilization is that civilization has overcome what was once an untamed country. To continue, the country has organized many laws to prevent crimes, and they are kept by the National Archives and Records Administration. So, as you can see, outlaws have a distinct culture that prospered in the absence of authority.